Okay, so for today we'll discuss on how do we. Okay, so let's just take a step back. So previously, we discussed the vision mission of the organization through the asynchronous materials, and then we looked into how exactly organizations earn their money via the business model. And then third is we look into how organizations think or design their competitive strategy and advantage with the using the Porter's five forces model to understand how each players in the competition within the industry basically affect each other or play with each other. Okay, so those were the three frameworks so far. Okay, so the vision mission statement, business model canvas, and also the Porter's five forces model. We discussed some frameworks in between, like the BCG matrix and the consumer perceived value to quality to value or to price. Okay, so but those mostly were just guidelines that you can work on. So if you need some frameworks, but in terms of the main frameworks, so it will be the vision mission statement, business model canvas, and the five forces model. Okay, so now let's talk about how do we bring down these strategies, these directions down to the organization? Okay, so when it comes to implementing business strategy, there were still some challenges. First is that most of the strategies are profit and revenue focused rather than value proposition. So if you recall, what business model canvas, it's really important to define your value proposition because that could also define your competitive value against your competitors. Okay, but if we're still looking into profit and revenue, like the number of sales for the next year, okay, then some organizations or some companies might lose track of what should be focused on. Okay, so there can be a loss of focus. So instead of going into their core business, okay, which is the value proposition, they would actually they would actually split their resources across multiple initiatives, which might not be related to the value proposition. Okay, so that's the challenge here. The chart that you're seeing on the screen are the barriers to strategy execution. So one reason that uh, that these organizations have challenges in executing their strategy. First is the vision barrier that only a few understands the direction of the organization. So it's a very challenging thing because especially with the operations people or the employees, they run your business, they run your organization. So if they don't understand at least why they're working for it, that can be a challenge in terms of achieving your goals or direction. Okay, it could also be that there's a people barrier that not all managers or not all departments are incentivized to work on that strategy. So there might be some strategies that that disregards other departments and focuses on specific departments that can basically discourage those undermined departments, okay, to work more towards that goal. Okay, they might just say that I'm not even relevant anymore, so why should I keep working on these activities and so on. So that can be um that's also a challenge when it comes to executing your strategies. um Management barrier, okay, uh that means that once the management lays down the strategy, they do not recall again what has been done, what was done properly, what needs to be fixed, or what needs to be um, what can be done well in the next term. Okay, so there's no review of the strategy that's going on. So that's a barrier from the management side. Or lastly, the strategy is just too expensive in terms of resources, both from human resources, financial resources, or anything that they need for that strategy. So it can be just too expensive to be implemented. So that's also a challenge, of course. Okay. Now, we have this framework called the balance scorecard. So it basically ties down your vision down to each strategy, down to each objectives, and giving them specific metrics. Okay, so from the vision, which is the desired future state, we have these strategies, which are our differentiating activities, or uh, how do we implement the vision, how do we move basically to implement the vision. Now each strategies will have their own objectives. Okay, so in terms of objectives, how what needs to be attained. Okay, and we bring it down into measures on uh if how much do we need to attain in order to say that we are successful in achieving the objectives. So at least in this case, we are making now the strategies more uh, making them smarter, making them more measurable, so it can be improved in the next review. Okay, so the balance scorecard is a conceptual framework enabling an organization in clarifying its vision, strategy, and effectively translating them into action. Okay, so it uses the four main resources in the organization, which are the financial resources or financial aspect, the human aspect, materials, and customers. Okay, so in this case, financial, customer, internal process, and internal employees. Okay, so to transform strategies into actionable performance metrics that can be analyzed, and also to find causal relationships that if we get to have an understanding of how let's say the financial side of supply chain affects the internal process of human resources, something like that, or the other way around possibly. Okay, so how do they relate to each other that could give us more profitable insights to operational decision makers? Okay, so how does this work? How does this look like? So we have these four scorecards basically. So first we look at the financials, okay, and then it's tied down. Everything is tied together. Okay, let's say how does our financials affect our customer scorecard? How does it affect our learning and growth scorecard or the employee scorecard? Okay, and also the business process. Okay, usually we lay it down in a way that is more understandable, like such as a strategy map, which where we can see how each of the scorecards actually relate to each other. Okay, so for example, if the objective for learning and growth is to attract and develop remain talent, we can see that it will affect internal processes. Okay, so it can be um, enhancing internal and external communication. It could be optimizing customer facing process, which makes the company look like it's an easy to that we're easy to do business with. Okay, that can actually lower costs and grow some revenue towards our financial scorecards. So that's how each of the scorecards would trickle down to each other. Okay, another example would be, okay, so for example, from the corporate scorecard, okay, so from a high level or headquarters perspective, their goal or objective from the customer side is to increase customer loyalty. That's the overall direction of the organization. So what the management wants is to move satisfied customers to loyal customers. Okay, and their measure for that would be the customer loyalty rating, which is probably they have a survey, they have a scoring, and their target for the year is 75%. Okay, but this is the corporate scorecard. When it trickles down to lower to departments, let's say to customer service and marketing departments specifically, okay, this will affect their internal process. Okay, because moving this satisfied to loyal customers is something that they need to do. Okay, as customer service and marketing. Okay, so that became from a customer scorecard or from a customer perspective in the corporate scorecard, it becomes an internal process perspective in the customer service and marketing department scorecard. Okay, so what they want to achieve, what they want to do specifically to increase customer loyalty is to redesign customer processes. Okay, so the number of processes that they want to redesign is 5. Okay, and to help them achieve this objective, right? So they have to rely on supporting or departments such as the IT department. Okay, so from the IT department, what they need to do is to provide effective IT support or desktop support, so that they want to be able to service at least 500 requests from the customer service and marketing department. Okay, so as you can see from a very generic scorecard, it trickles down into specific departments, and it even affects supporting departments' scorecards. So let's say if they do not achieve 500, they only achieve 100 or 200 this year, okay, then that's an area for review. What happened there is it because we lack people in the IT department that can support 500 requests, or maybe it comes from the demand itself. Maybe there are not much requests from the customer service and marketing department, so that's an issue. Okay, so for the next year, or when the team makes revisits their strategy, they can actually change the number, maybe to bring it down or bring it up, um depending on the scenario. Okay, so that's an example of how they can actually look at scorecards to as a process improvement part, as part of process improvement, so that they know how they fared well, how they fared based on their objectives and measures. And having a specific number, okay, um helps them define the performance basically. Okay, some common measures that each areas are looking at. So from financial measures, a lot of these might not be familiar, or I'm not sure if you're familiar with, but we also have they could be looking at gross margin, net income. Some are looking at profit per employee, okay, or some are also looking, of course, revenue, cash flow, total costs, and so on. Okay. Um, from a customer perspective, we are looking at customer loyalty, customer satisfaction, some feed from the feedback forms. You can get that. If you are dealing with sales process, you are looking at the win rate, how many um, deals were closed. Okay, um, out of your entire account portfolio. Some might be looking at customer visits to the company. Okay, from our side in SAP, we saw that there's a trend that if we meet the customers more often, there's a higher there's a chance that we can increase the revenue that we can get from that deal. Okay, so that was an observation back then. Okay, I'm not sure if it's the same trend as today. um, Response rate, sales volume, these are just some common metrics. Interesting metrics would be customer lost, okay, or how many have moved out of the organization. Okay, so let's say uh, you are a subscriber from Spotify, okay, and you decided to cancel your subscription, then you will be counted as customer lost basically. And for them, that's a critical metric, because they for cloud subscription or subscription model, okay, number of customers is what define the success of those businesses. Okay, so that's another metric from customer measure. Okay, supply chain measures, or the operations itself. Okay, cost of finished goods inventory turns, how often or how quick our inventories move. Okay, because the longer it stays in our warehouse, it's costlier for the organization. Okay, and the quicker it is, it's better in terms of inventory value, but it might also mean that we're not fulfilling the inventory needs. So that's also a different perspective in terms of quick inventory turns. Okay. Um, Information systems, if that's part of the costing, that's also included. on-time delivery receipt, okay, order cycle time, response time, and so on. Okay, so you not at least for now, you don't have to understand all of these things, but at least when you come across these terms, when you maybe read some articles online, news, okay, at least you would know what that it's talking about their operations, it's talking about their finance, it's talking about their sales and marketing side. Okay. Lastly, for internal process measures, okay, we could be looking at waste reduction, continuous improvement, warranty claims, R&D expense, environmental emissions for sustainability directions or initiatives of different companies. This is one thing that they're looking at. What else is interesting here? Okay, possibly new products introduced, time to market, how fast can they uh, introduce new products or services into the market. Okay, uh, nothing more that I see interesting so far. Okay, from an employee perspective, okay, employee satisfaction is one of the key things that they're looking at. How engaged, how happy the employees are within the organization. Um, Turnover rate is another thing that companies are looking. So they're looking at how quick the employees in the company move in and out of the organization. Okay, so that's why it's turnover. So if there's a huge turnover rate for a department, then that there's a need to um, review what is going on in that department, because that could mean that there might be some issues. It could be internal process issues. It could be manager issues, or it's just simply that um, employees from those departments are uh, more quote unquote marketable, and they are being approached by competitor companies. Okay, for they were being recruited out of our organization. Okay, so to help you with that, with all of these things, right? So we have this the Deloitte, which is a consulting company. Okay, they devised a framework that can help you make that connection. Okay, from what specific actions into objectives and into strategic directions. Okay, you can look at it from top to bottom. Let's say your direction is revenue growth. You have two approaches, whether to work on your pricing or to work on the volume. Okay, and let's say we want to work on the volume. Okay, what can we do? We can actually acquire new customers, retain customers, or leverage on some assets that are earning that are generating money for us. Okay, so if our direction now is to acquire new customers, especially for subscription models, these are the two main areas that they're working on: to acquire new customers and retain them. Okay, let's say from acquiring new customers perspective, they can work on marketing and sales or product and service innovation, and these are the things that they can do. Okay, that they can review and change, okay, to help improve their acquiring new customers process. Okay, or if they are looking at retaining and growing their current customers, they could be looking at account management, they could be looking at cross-selling activities, or they could be looking at specific retention activities. Okay, or bottom-up approach. Okay, so that the employees would understand why they're working on these activities. Why do we need to focus on more profitable products and services? Why do we need to, by example, why do we need to improve our account management strategy? Okay, so when they go up from these activities, so let's say improve account management strategies, it's actually about account management. It's about making better relationships with customer to be able to retain them as our customer and grow the account or the deal size. Okay, which will all affect the revenue growth and afterwards the operating margin. Okay, so just to give you an idea how this looks like, this is just a snippet of the value map. Okay, Let's see if this link still works. Okay, let's look here. Nakita kaya to? Can you all see my screen? Can you see the PDF?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So yan. Ganyan siya kalaki. So um there are a lot of things that you can do in an organization, right, to improve the shareholder value, which is the main objective of for-profit companies, okay, to improve the shareholder value. When they're looking at shareholder value, they could be looking at revenue growth, improving the margin, which involves the costing, okay, the costs, asset efficiency, making sure that their assets are effectively helping them generate revenue or generate revenue basically, and also some expectations, okay, if we're looking at external factors and internal factors, okay. If we focus, let's say, on one area, okay, let's say improving the revenue, okay, ito yun nasa screenshot na pinakita ko. So they could be working on volume or pricing, okay. When it comes to pricing, they might look at the demand, supply, and price optimization, or from the volume perspective, or they will be looking at where can they get revenue, okay, either to get more customers, to retain customers and grow their current spending, or leverage on some assets that are earning money for us, okay. Let's say from the costs perspective, okay, operating margin, we could be looking at the costs of goods sold, okay, improving the development, production efficiency, and logistics efficiency, or it could be internal costs like selling and general and admin costs, okay. So information systems could come in when there's a need to automate some processes for efficiency, okay, and then you can see how each of these would affect uh, these directions or these processes, okay. So for example, if there's a need for, yeah, I'm just looking for an example here. Okay, so for example, when improving spending on IT department, right? Kaya pa ba ito yung zoom in? Hindi na yata. Okay, so one area here is to consolidate outsource design, development, and deployment services. So it could be something that IT departments need to think whether to continue developing their own solutions, or maybe it's really more efficient or cost efficient to just buy out of the box and have someone implement it instead of spending too much resources on developing your own applications. Okay, so those are the things that a company would be looking at. Okay, so these are the things that you can change. Okay, and what you do better. Okay, there are different areas as well on the business processes, whether it's from a strategy perspective or from IT strategy and management perspective, product strategy, or different directions as well. Okay, so it's a huge document. I'm not expecting you to learn all through this, don't worry, but it could be helpful for your future case studies. Let's say there's a need for to fix operating margin, okay, then you can look here, what are the things that you can do? Or it could be the other way around, where the goal is to, let's say, improve customer retention, then you would understand why the company needs to do such activities or such objective. Okay, so that's an FYI in this case. All right, any questions so far? Okay, any questions?
Sir.
Yes, who's speaking? Sorry, would you mean to say no question? Sino ba yun? Okay. Sige, wala. Okay. All right. Yeah, so that would be the last um uh framework for today. Okay, so the focus is on how do we bring down these directions and make them more um understandable, real more realizable, okay, in a sense that everyone knows what's going on. Okay, if the direction is to improve sales, how much sales exactly? And we can see from the customer score, from the business scorecard, that they actually affect other scorecards as well. So one, if you are, let's say, the department head, you need to understand how your scorecard is affected by other scorecards and how your scorecard will affect other scorecards. Okay, so it's a collaborative effort from the entire organization, and the scorecards would be a very helpful way uh, to to illustrate that synchronization or synergy across departments. Okay, so if there are no questions, that's the end for this module. Okay, so next week we will be looking at ano nga ba yun next week? Teka,